Welcome to Price, the fastest way to grow your bookkeeping firm. We have 40 minutes together today, and I have a lot of stuff to share with you about how you can grow your firm, focusing on the most powerful lever in the profit equation. And I hope you're enjoying the Successful Bookkeeper Summit so far. The theme, as you know, is Make It Grow, and so we're going to be certainly talking about that today. Now, of course, just in case you don't know who I am, my name is Mark Wickersham. I'm a chartered accountant from the UK. I started my own accounting firm as a sole proprietor way back now in 1996. I made a complete mess of it in the early years because I didn't know how to price. I was way too cheap. And 2.5 years in, I was working crazy long hours, not making enough money. That was until the end of 1999, I met Ron Baker, who's now a good friend of mine. And it was Ron Baker who explained value pricing to me. And it was that moment where everything changed for me. It made so much sense. I changed the way I priced in my accounting firm, had amazing results, and I was able to sell it to my client managers a few years later. And I did that because I'd been invited to speak several times from the year 2000, teaching firms of accountants how to price. I then went on to write a few books. My first book was published in May of 2011. It was called Effective Pricing for Accountants. I then wrote A Practical Approach to Value Pricing, Price, the Fast Way to Change Profits, and How to Build a Successful Bookkeeping Business. And then most recently, just a few weeks back, Kogan Page published my latest book, which is actually over here, Value Pricing for Accounting Professionals, which I think you can get on Amazon and at Kogan Page's website. So we have just under 40 minutes together. We have a lot of stuff to cover. What are we going to talk about in this session? I'm going to talk about the 3 primary ways to grow your business. I'm going to look at why winning brand new clients might not be the right thing to do for you now. Okay, sounds interesting. I'll explain. And we're going to look at 5 strategies that you can use to grow your business through price. Now, it may be as I go through this content, you've got questions for me. And unfortunately, I'm not going to have a chance to do a Q&A session because we only have such little time together. So as you think of questions, this is what I recommend you do. Firstly, go and connect with me if you're not already on LinkedIn. This is what my LinkedIn page looks like. Go and connect, and I'll accept your connection request. It may be because of difference in time zones. I'm in the UK, well actually I'm in Portugal right now. It may be tomorrow or the day after I accept your connection request. But what I'll do is I'll send you some free resources. And also what I'll do is I'll answer any questions. And if you're already connected with me on LinkedIn, just go there and go to messages and message me any questions you've got. I will happily answer any questions that arise from today's session. So that's how we'll deal with your questions. I hope that's okay. And you'll find me on LinkedIn pretty easily, I think. Okay, let's talk about the 3 primary ways to grow a business. You see, every business, your business, your clients' businesses, we all have in our businesses a formula, a business model that really consists of all the things that drive profits. And because the theme of this conference, this summit, is Make It Grow, we're going to focus on top line for now. And what we can do is we can break it down into different drivers. So if we think of sales, our fees, whatever you want to call it, they're really made up of these 3 separate elements. There are the number of customers or clients, if you like. Number of customers or clients. And then every time they do business with you, they will spend a certain amount of money on average. And they will also come to buy from you so many times a year. We call it frequency. And of course, if we're talking about bookkeeping work, typically bookkeeping work is delivered every single month. So let's just assume for now, just to keep things simple, if right now you just do bookkeeping. It may well be that you have 10 bookkeeping clients. And it may be those 10 bookkeeping clients on average pay you $100 a month. I'm just picking a random number, but let's say it's $100 a month. If they pay you $100 a month and they buy from you 12 times a year, because that's the typical average frequency for recurring bookkeeping work. If we were to multiply those three numbers together, 12 times a year, 10 people spend on average 100. That's 10 times 100 is 1,000. 1,000 times 12 is 12,000. That would be your fees, 12,000. So if we want to grow our bookkeeping business, then these are the three drivers that we would look at, that we would focus on. We can either win more clients, win more customers, or we can get them to spend more, or we can get them to increase the frequency. Now, for today, because we're talking about bookkeeping, I'm going to ignore the frequency because bookkeeping is delivered typically monthly. We bill it once a month. The frequency is typically 12. But if we start to step outside of bookkeeping and we look at other things that you might sell, and so you might sell doing cash flow forecasts, you might sell filling in loan application forms, it might be cleanup work, it may be then for any one of your clients, you might get them to buy more frequently, to buy more, come back to you more times in the year to buy other things. But I'm going to leave the frequency out. Think about the other two though for a minute, customers and amount. One of the things that most people focus on, and this is not just bookkeepers, not just accountants, it's all businesses. When businesses want to grow, their usual initial thoughts is, let me go and win more customers. And that's not the right approach, really, for two reasons. And I'm going to explain them by way of some numbers. And I'm going to pick some sample little profit and loss account. You may have heard of something called the 3/3 model. It's perhaps more commonly referred to with CPAs. But essentially what the 3/3 model says is that whatever our fees are in our accounting firm, then typically a third of those relate to the chargeable salaries, a third is the fixed cost, a third is net profit. And this 3/3 model really comes from the fact that typically when coming up with charge out rates, we take a multiple of chargeable salaries. And it's usually between 3 and 3.5, sometimes a bit more. And so if someone's being paid $100 an hour, their charge out rate might be set at $350 per hour. And because of the way charge out rates are set in the profession, we get this 3/3 model, which means that most accounting firms make about 33% net profit margin. It's a flawed model, okay? But I'm just using it to illustrate something. So I have no idea right now what your fees are. And it may be you don't even employ people right now. But given that this is all about make it grow and growing our firms, at some point you probably will be thinking about hiring other people in your firm. And you may find that at some point it looks something like this. Fees of $240,000, $80,000 is the chargeable salary costs, you have some premises, some light and heat, $80,000, and you're making $80,000 in net profit. And let's imagine that you want to double your profits. You want to grow, you want to double your profits. There are really three main options that you have available to you to double your profits. The first one, option number one, is to win more clients, which is where most people think about. I want to grow, I need more clients. So let's just look at the math of that. If you want to double your profits, then this is what you would need to do. You would need to have annual fees of $360,000, because if you double your profits and as you double, you'll need to hire people, you'll scale through people, you will need to take on more people. If you increase your annual fees, take on more clients, you will likely to increase your chargeable salary cost by the similar proportion. And let's assume that fixed costs stay the same, which actually they might not. If you were to have a significant increase in annual fees, you might decide, and you had to hire somebody, you might have to move into premises, for example, and have other costs. But let's keep it simple for now. The bottom line here is that if you want to double your profits, you would have to win 50% more clients to do that. And there's some challenges there. To grow a firm, to increase clients by 50% doesn't happen overnight. It might in the first year of a new business, but an established business, it takes a long time to win new clients. It's a slow process. Firms struggle to grow at 10% new clients every single year, over and above those they lose. And so it could take 5 years to double profits by winning more clients. Client acquisition is tough. It can be expensive. Your fixed costs will probably grow as well, which means it'll take even longer to double profits. So whilst there's nothing wrong with winning more clients, if you want to grow your firm, if you have ambitious growth goals, it's not as easy as it might sound. Now, option number 2 is a better option. Option number 2 is by cross-selling more. What I mean by that is by selling more services to your existing clients. Now, if we do the math actually doesn't change. You would still need to increase by 50% your fees, and your chargeable salary costs may well increase by 50% as well. But this is a better option, because it's much, much easier to sell more services to an existing client where there's a know, like, and trust factor in place than to find somebody who's never heard of you before. It's also a better approach as well, because very often when you sell more services to clients, they are very often the more profitable ones. So very often in our profession, the compliance work tends to be the least profitable. The bookkeeping is labor intensive, it's time intensive to do the bookkeeping. But if we were starting to sell cash flow forecasting, business advisory, other services like that, more valuable services, we can charge higher prices. And it may be that we don't have to employ as many people. So in other words, when we cross-sell higher value services, we can actually get to doubling profits much, much quicker than with option 1. But let's look at option number 3. And option number 3, and I think I've got a mistake in the heading on the slide. Forget the heading. Option number 3 is instead... no, I have got it right. Here it is. Option number 3 is change your price. Option number 3 is to change your price. So, and if we think about those 3 ways to grow the business, remember I said earlier that your sales, your fees is made up of how many clients you have right now, multiplied by how much they spend, multiplied by how often they spend, the frequency, which for a bookkeeping business we'll just assume is 12. Most people focus on the winning more clients. And actually getting existing clients to spend more money on average is much, much better and easier. Now, we can actually break that down to 2 separate drivers. The average amount somebody spends. And that is because we can get our clients to spend more money with us by selling something else, the cross-selling. We could go to a client that buys bookkeeping and we could sell them a cash flow forecast or business advisory. That would increase the amount of money that our clients pay us. And if you could do that across your entire client base, your average amount that each client buys goes up. So that would be a great strategy to get existing clients to buy more. But we can also get our existing clients to spend more money on average, not just by buying more stuff, but by changing the price. So let's imagine that you go down this route. If we decide to change our price and we want to double our profits just by changing price, then as you'll perhaps see, the numbers are a bit different now because we don't have to increase fees by 50%, because when we make a pricing change, our cost structure doesn't change. If you win more clients, if you sell more services, there'll come a point where you have to hire more people. And you may have to also increase fixed costs by moving into bigger premises. But when you change your prices, the cost structure doesn't change. And so mathematically, the effect is bigger. In other words, you can double your profits by increasing your price by just 33%. Assuming, of course, you don't lose any clients. And I'll come on to that point. If you want to double your profits through options 1 and 2, you either have to get 50% more clients, that takes time, or you have to sell 50% more stuff to your existing clients. But if we focus on price, we only have to increase price by 33%. Now, mathematically, it's easier to grow our firms and make more profit by focusing on price. But not just mathematically, but also speed. If you think about it, if you want to double your profits and you go through client acquisition, to increase the number of clients by 50% could be, as we said, 5 years. It could take 5 years to double your profits. But if you focus on price, you could tomorrow go to all your clients and put the price up by 33%. And assuming nobody leaves, then almost instantaneously, within a year, your profits have doubled. This is why I say price is the fastest way to grow your firm, the fastest way to change your results, focusing on price. Now, I'm going to come on to, though, what happens if clients leave, because that's the big fear. That's the big fear. And so let's imagine, for argument's sake, that actually you put your price up by 33%, a third, and a third do leave. Okay, what happens if a third leave? Well, if you do the math, and I don't know the numbers for your firm, so you can put the numbers in for your firm and do these calculations. But typically, if you were to win 33% of clients, increase your price by 33% and 33% leave, then really nothing changes. In fact, what does change is you would win about 12 hours of time a week, because I'm guessing you're working on those clients as well. If a third of your clients goes, then you're freeing up almost a day and a half of your week to do other stuff, which could be focusing on practice development. So if clients do leave, you'd have to lose a lot for it to have a negative impact. And the reality is, it's very unlikely that 33% of clients will leave, because there's a stickiness in our profession. There's a loyalty built in, because it's not easy to change bookkeeper. If you're running a coffee shop, if you're running Starbucks, and Starbucks put their price up by 33% overnight, then people could very easily switch to Costa Coffee or Pete's or one of those other coffee chains. It's fairly easy to switch if coffee prices go up. But bookkeeping's different. You have a relationship with your clients. There's a stickiness there. There's a loyalty there. Let's look at a more likely result, because if you put your prices up, yes, you might lose some clients. When I was running my accounting firm back in the 1990s, I was way too cheap, and I was working crazy long hours, struggling to make ends meet. And then in late 99, I came across value pricing. And I started initially applying that to brand new clients. But then I realized I had to tackle my existing clients. I had over 200 clients that most of them were way too cheap. I was working crazy hard, crazy hours. And I realized I had to bite the bullet and reprice those existing clients. And what I did is I created a process. I call it the contract renewal letter process. I went to all those clients and put the price up. I did it by 20%. And I hoped to lose a lot of clients. I had some bad clients in my accounting firm, because I made lots of mistakes in those early days. I had some terrible clients. And I actually wanted to lose clients because I was working crazy hours. What actually happened was I put the price up by 20% and only 5% left. I was a bit disappointed. So the year later, I repeated the exercise. I went back to them all again and put the price up by another 20%. If you do the math, that's 44% over 2 years. So what I found is, I've been teaching a process to accounting firms for 20 years now, the process I started of increasing prices. And what I found over and over and over again is that firms that follow the process put their price up by typically 20%. sometimes more, and sometimes don't lose any clients at all. Sometimes they lose a few, 5%, let's say. So let's have a look at the math, and you could apply this to your numbers. If you were to raise your prices the right way by 20%, and you might lose 5%, if we use those same numbers that we've been using, then what would actually happen is annual fees would grow. We'd have less chargeable salaries because we could potentially reduce some costs because we have less clients to serve, but our profits grow by almost 50%. And I've seen that over and over again, that bookkeeping firms who have tackled this issue of figuring out how to effectively reprice their existing clients have done that with very, very few loss of clients. And what the end result has been more profit and also some time freed up, because when some clients leave, then it frees up time. And one of the interesting things is this. When you think about your clients right now, you've probably got a mix of clients. You've probably got some clients who you love working with. I did. But there's some clients that are probably a pain. The pitter clients, the ones that we dread, the ones that we have a meeting with them next week and we're worried about next week's meeting because we know they're going to complain about the bill, they're going to whinge. And the problem is that we worry about that for the week leading up to that meeting. It drains our energy. And quite frankly, we are better off without those clients. And so when you put your prices up, the question then becomes, yes, we might lose some clients. Which clients will you lose? Will you lose the clients that you love working with, that they love working with you, they value what you do? Or will you lose the ones that are always complaining, the ones that hate paying you, the ones that don't see any value, the ones that are slow to pay you? It's the latter ones. They're the ones that will go. So when you put your prices up, you are likely to make more profit. You're also likely to free up some time because some clients will leave. But arguably, best of all, is it's a great process for getting rid of the clients that we don't enjoy serving, the ones that drain our energy. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we reprice our existing clients? And this is something that you have to do every single year. And I've spoken to many bookkeepers who said they've not changed their rates for 3, 4, 5 years. And that's crazy. We have to do this frequently, at least every year. Why? Well, first, because prices go up. Inflation, you've probably heard of that. Inflation, we have to change our prices. But also, when you change your price every single year, you don't have to put it up as much as if you haven't done it for 5 or 6 years, because there's a lot of catching up to do if you haven't done that. And when you put your price up every single year, it can be a little bit less. But also what happens is when you do that, when you get into the habit of every year repricing, the clients get used to it. They expect it. Just like we expect it with certain things that we buy. So I know, for example, that in the UK, we have something called council tax. It goes up every year. Every year we get it. It comes out in January. Another thing saying this year it's going to be this amount. And we know it's going to happen. Utility bills, they'll often be raised at least once a year. We expect it as customers. So the more frequently you change your price, the easier it becomes for you because they get used to it and you can do it incrementally, smaller amounts. So let's look, though, at 5 strategies, 5 ways that you can increase prices, little techniques that you can use to make it easier still. So let's start off. Number 1, the first thing you can do is add more value. So as well as putting the price up, what more can you do? What more value can you create for your clients? What could you do next year for them that you didn't do last year? It may be that you have a review meeting with them or a quarterly review meeting with them to give them some advice that perhaps you weren't doing before. It may be that you have a meeting at the end of the year to help them analyze and think about their goals and how you can help them achieve their goals. It may be that you give them unlimited telephone support It may be, it could be that you set them up with a particular piece of software that works, which will make their life easier. Whatever it might well be, think about how you can add more value. How can you create something that's going to give them a better result? And so when the price then goes up, they can see they're getting more. They can see they're getting a better result. And linked to that, the second strategy is we have to think about how we communicate the value. Not just for anything new we do, adding more value, there's that, but the existing stuff. Very often, clients don't really appreciate what we do. And that's because we've never really told them. And just to give you a story on this, and this is an old story now, it goes back to the early part of the last century. It's the story of Schlitz beer. And they were struggling in the beer league tables with selling beer. They were languishing in something like 15th place. And so they hired Claude Hopkins. Claude Hopkins was a famous copywriter, marketer. And he went to visit Schlitz beer, which is on the shores of Lake Michigan. And when he turned up, somebody took him for a tour of the factory, of the brewery. And then when he went round the brewery, they showed him things like how they built these really deep artesian wells to get the purest water, even though they were on the shores of Lake Michigan. They showed him the mother yeast cells that were used for creating the beer. They showed him how they steam cleaned at extreme temperatures the bottles to make them as clean as possible. And he was amazed as he went around the brewery. And when he went back to the boardroom and saw the directors, he said to the directors, "This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I can't believe that even though you're on the shores of Lake Michigan, you drill these great big artesian wells to get the purest water. I can't believe the way that you steam clean the bottles to make them so clean." And the directors looked at him and said, "That's what every brewery does. That's what you have to do." And Claude Hopkins said, "I didn't know that." So he went and wrote some marketing pieces where he described the story of Schlitz beer. He described how Schlitz beer made their beer. And what happened is that as a result of that marketing campaign, Schlitz beer went from going in about 15th place to I think it was number 1 or number 2 in market share of beer, all around the messaging of the purest beer. And the reality was they weren't doing anything different to the other breweries. But people don't know the brewing process. When Claude Hopkins told the story, people saw Schlitz as being a premium beer, a purer beer, a better beer. And so my question for you is this: do your clients know what you do? Do they understand the processes that you go through to do their bookkeeping? And the chances are they don't. Do you explain to them that you do the bank reconciliation? Do you explain why you do it? Do you explain how they benefit from a bank reconciliation? Do you explain the problems it takes away, the pain it solves? Because if you don't do that, they won't understand the value. And one of the interesting things I've found over the years, and if you go to my YouTube channel, I've got interviews of people who've said this, is that when you go and reprice existing clients, I have stories of people like, for example, Jane Aylwin. I mentioned a book I wrote called How to Build a Successful Bookkeeping Business. The co-author of that was Jane Aylwin. She ran a bookkeeping business in the UK. It's this book here. And Jane tells a story in here. And one of the things she tells in the book is how she repriced some existing clients and got double the price, and in one case 4 times the price. And nothing changed. She didn't add more value. She simply did the second one. She just explained what she did. And when she explained what she did, people then saw greater value and were willing to pay higher prices. So we have to think about the words, the messaging. What do we put in our in our communications when we increase our prices. We have to make sure that we communicate value. Number 3, the next thing you want to do is change the reference price. What do I mean by that? The hardest thing about, and the reason why people put off repricing existing clients, when people move to value pricing over and over again, they tell me, I'm value pricing my new clients, because that's an easy place to start. Because your new clients don't know how you priced before. The challenge is the existing clients. The existing clients have what's called a reference price. The reference price is what you charged last year. If you charge them if their bookkeeping was $500 a month last year, and you want to increase that by 20% to $600, then they're going to compare in their mind the 600 to the 500. There's that comparison. The 500, last year's price, is the reference price. And that creates an anchor in their mind by which they will judge your new price. And so what we need to do is change the reference price. We need to change the number that they are thinking about. And there are lots of ways of doing this when we start to understand the power of anchoring. So it may be, for example, that when we're repricing, we talk about the value that we've created. Perhaps last year, for example, because of some advice you gave them as part of the bookkeeping, they've saved some money, they've reduced some costs, they've saved some taxes, whatever it might well be. And let's say you help them to save, let's say you help them to reduce their cost last year by $2,000. Then what you could do is say, we helped you, if you remember, we did this, this, and this, and we helped you to save $2,000 last year. Now your price going forward is going to be just $600 a month. And what happens is people then compare the 600 to the 1,000. It creates a new anchor. It's not the same thing. I know it's not, but people, when we understand price psychology, what happens is people compare numbers, a price against something else, usually something very recent. Without an anchor, they will compare the 600 with the last year's price of 500. But when we use some different numbers, then we're changing the reference price in their mind. Next thing that we can do, number 4, is we can give advance notice. In other words, nobody wants a price to go up. Nobody wants the price to go up. It creates pain. Whenever we're a customer and we see the price goes up, there's a pain associated with that because we have to take more money out of our pocket essentially and pay it across. So nobody likes price rises. There's a pain associated with that. But again, something we've learned from price psychology is the pain of a price rise now is much greater than a future price rise. In other words, if you say to a client, we're going to put your price up today by 20%, there's a huge amount of pain associated with that. But if you say we're reviewing our prices and we're changing our prices, but because you're such a great client, we're not going to change your price for 3 more months, then that reduces the pain because it could still be the same 20% price rise, but it's 3 months away. 3 months isn't now. We don't feel it now. And so it's not as big a pain to the client. It's not a bigger problem. And then when 3 months comes round, they've got used to the idea and it's no longer a shock. So giving people advance notice is really powerful. And number 5, the 5th thing you can do when it comes to repricing existing clients is give people choice. So if last year you had a bookkeeping service and it was $500 a month, this year, give them a choice of a bronze, silver, gold. Say you've been reviewing your services because other clients are asking for more and wanting more support, more help with growing a successful business. And so we've created 3 different options so you can choose which one's best for you. So we can use what I call menu pricing or options within our repricing. You've seen the bronze, silver, gold. If you attended my session last year at the 2021 Summit, I talked about this in detail. And this is powerful because when you give people 3 choices, you will find that some clients, when they see more value, will happily pay you more money. And one of the things that we can do and here's a great strategy when you're repricing, is think about what is it they bought last year and make sure that none of the 3 packages for this year is last year's package. So in other words, the entry package might be the essential stuff. The entry package might be what they got last year with a few things taken out. The middle package might be what they got last year and some other things they really want, some extra value. And it may be that when you thought about this idea of creating more value, there's other things that you could do for them which you know will give them a better result, a premium option. And then you give them a choice. And then what you might do is, let's imagine you want to put your price up by 20%. You might then decide, well, the entry option, which is the essentials, which is a bit less than what they got last year, we'll put up by between 0 and 5%. A kind of an inflationary rise, if you like. You could leave it the same if you want to. It all depends how brave you are, but somewhere between 0 and 5%. Then make the middle option somewhere around about what you really want. If you want to increase your price by 20%, the middle option, make it about 20%. And then have a much more expensive one, which would be at least 30% and possibly 50% higher price. What happens when you present that to your client or clients? Some clients may not be in a position to pay more right now. And so they'll go for the entry level. Well, that's fine. They're still clients and you just have a little bit less work to do. But you will also find that you will have some clients that do want more. And if that middle package includes things that they want, that will help them to solve other problems, then they will choose to pay you the 20% extra. And that's the important point. By giving people choice, then people are choosing to pay you more rather than a price rise being inflicted on them. They have a choice. And then the premium one is because some people will choose to pay you much more. And if it's a much higher price, that then itself creates another anchor. So it may be that if you make the premium 50% more, people may not buy it, but it makes the middle one feel less. Now, I'm conscious that we are pretty much out of time. We only had 50 minutes and a lot of stuff, 40 minutes, a lot of stuff to cover in the 40 minutes. And so a couple of final points I want to make is, if you want to learn more about value pricing, and if you want to grow your bookkeeping business, then we have something called the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy, where we have live training teaching you value pricing and marketing skills. Now, the only problem is we only open it once or twice a year. The next time we are opening it will be for 6 days in February of 2023. If I gave you the link right now, it will just take you to a page that says, sorry, we're full. And so you'll have to wait till February. We're going to be running a 3-day conference all around pricing bookkeeping in February. Watch out for that. And at the same time, we'll open up enrollment for the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy. However, if this is something that you really would like to do and don't want to have to wait 3 months, then we may be able to let you in early and at the old price, because there'll be a new price in February. If you're interested in the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy, then this is what I recommend you do. Go to my LinkedIn profile, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll send you some free resources as well. And then go hit the message button, send me a message, and just put in the message just go to LinkedIn and send me a message that says, how can I get in now? You can say more if you want, but if you say, how can I get in now? What I'll do is I will figure out and get back to you on how you could get into the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy early without having to wait and without having to pay the 2023 price at a lower price that you can lock in forever. Thank you so much for listening to me. I've had great fun and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the summit. It's going to be awesome. There are some amazing speakers. I will see you again soon. Connect on LinkedIn. We can chat there. Goodbye for now.